So, oh, it's really good. Oh, sorry. This. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Everything is Fine, Nothing is Ruined podcast. I am your host this week, and oh god, so delicious. Joining me is my delicious co-host, and folks, I don't mean that in a romantic way. I mean, if you see him on the street, you should do as I do and just carve a chunk off of his thigh, throw that in with some garlic, bit of rosemary, some onion. Anyway, my delicious co-host Tristan joining me here.
Hey, yeah, that's me. Are you eating thighs over there?
Yeah. No, you didn't know it was me that carved off that like hunk of your thigh?
Oh, that explains a lot.
Yeah,
I kind of need that. It was a large portion of my quad. I kind of need that for squatting. So,
okay, well,
yeah.
You wanted to talk about Dungeon Meshi?
Yeah, I do.
A manga that involves eating party members.
No,
and
you got it wrong.
No, definitely a lot of party member eating at that.
Well,
end.
actually, there is. Yeah,
yeah.
That's good. Well,
there's only one other party member here, so who else was I supposed to cut up and eat?
Yeah, I guess that's a good point.
You didn't expect this to happen?
I mean,
it's not like I can go find
have.
a real... Dragons aren't real, so I can't go eat a dragon.
I mean, Komodo dragon. You can eat a Komodo dragon.
I'm going to eat a cute Komodo dragon? What's wrong with you?
Well, what's wrong with you eating people, huh? Yeah.
Because you're not as cute as a Komodo dragon.
This is true, I am not. It's a good point. Nor is my mouth so full of bacteria that can kill a person. So, I'm getting there, though, someday.
But yeah, what was that? How else was I supposed to do research for this topic?
I don't know. You could have read the manga a little bit. You could have
yeah, I read some of it, but I gotta go out and actually do the thing to see accuracy and all that.
Yeah, but the majority of things they do eat are non-party members.
Yeah,
they also do eat the human portion.
I can't eat those things.
We'll get there, I guess. But yeah, okay. But you could eat something weird. Okay, what if you went down to what if you ordered some rare meats I don't know, crocodile or rattlesnake or something gamey.
Look, I would gladly eat those, but where am I supposed to get those? They don't sell those here.
In the world's greatest dungeon, Florida.
I don't want to go to Florida.
That's the only dungeon we got, as far as I could tell.
Yeah, then I'm giving my money to the state and Ron DeSantis.
No, you gotta.
It's just wrong.
Here's what you do. You stay in Georgia. Stay in Georgia for the time being, and then when you want something from Florida, you jump over there. You take it. You steal that, and you jump back over to Georgia.
That still involves going into Florida, and I
know, but
it's easier to wait until you're asleep and carve hunks of your flesh off.
I mean, I would prefer if you didn't. I'm gonna file a police report, I assume, now.
But you're very tasty and well marbled.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, have you not tried your own flesh?
No,
it is succulent.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
Look, Christmas is coming up. I gotta tell you, I'm pretty sure you have some torso meat that would make a perfect Christmas roast.
Oh, hell yeah, okay. Well, here's the thing. I've actually been I've been kind of dreading making another turkey for Christmas because I made 2 in October for Canadian Thanksgiving and then a Friendsgiving thing. So I'm done with turkey for this year. So long pig this year? I don't know, maybe.
Yes,
my own.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my own body.
Yes.
Yeah, will do. That makes sense. I was going to carve a piece off right here.
What else says I care about you
than
your own flesh?
Good point. Yeah, this is all just bacon right here. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
delicious.
Just imagine carving that off, tossing it with some teriyaki sauce or something like that after you fry it. Yeah, lovely.
Yeah. Well, we can't spend the entire time talking about eating you. So,
yeah, it's true.
Dungeon Meshi.
Potato. Meshi, Mashi, Mushi.
Definitely not.
Dungeon Dajian.
I think it's Meshi.
I think it's Meshi, yes. It's the same thing. Like, you could say Dungeon to... Oh, there's the title card. All right. You say the same thing as like Dungeon, Dungeon, Donjon.
No, you really can't.
I beg to differ. Anyway. Yeah, Dungeon Meshi. So, Hassan, have you read Dungeon Meshi at all?
So I read I didn't hear, or I shouldn't say I didn't hear about, but I never had it really come onto my radar.
Okay.
Until hearing that they are,
They're done.
or this is being adapted into an anime, and it is being animated by Studio Trigger.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and that was only a few weeks ago. So I
Yep.
mostly cheated and ended up reading the first couple chapters and then the last couple chapters.
As you do.
But it seems pretty good.
It's
like
solid.
The
It's
concepts of it and the characters all seem very well done.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I actually went through the podcast just to check to see if like I ever mentioned this manga at all. It seems like I have not. And I'm like, how did I not at least once mention Dungeon Meshi, aka Delicious in Dungeon? The English title technically is what that is. Dungeon Meshi is a better title. Let's just be honest. Because you can say it in 2 words. As opposed to a bunch of... Anyway. Yeah, Dungeon Meshi I think is just a better title. And it's a manga that like it starts off kind of funny and supposed to be more of a like lighthearted tongue-in-cheek sort of thing. And then it evolves into a extremely sincere take on fantasy like manga and stories. Like it starts weird and funny and then goes right into like extremely soft-hearted and interesting, and we'll get there. This whole thing is the brainchild of Ryoko Kiwi. She is the mangaka. Wonderful artist. Great writer. And simply put, I think that her online presence as well is fun and interesting. So, look out for her like Twitter posts and that sort of thing.
Does she post in English or just Japanese?
Just Japanese, but I mean, like, translations software exists,
Yeah.
so,
Twitter has it built in and that. I assume she posts there.
Yeah, exactly.
Fairly popular amongst mangaka.
Yeah, she's really good and apparently very well liked. And, yeah, like I said, I think that Dungeon Meshi ends up being one of the more interesting takes on fantasy stories that I've read this year. And I love me some fantasy. To kind of like start it off, what this manga is about is essentially, I'm going to call him Team Laos, which is the main character's name, Laos. They are fighting a dragon, a red dragon, in this dungeon. It's a mega dungeon on this small island that they're all part of, and they've sailed to this island to kind of like find their fortune and that kind of stuff. Laos is on this island with his party, who consists of, at the time, himself, Marcel, Chilchuk, Phelan, his sister, Shuro, and can't remember her name now. Dwarven lady. Yeah.
Warvet.
Namari, there we go, Namari. Yeah, so they are fighting this dragon. It goes very poorly, and the dragon ends up eating Laos' sister, and right in front of him. And this is like after she like basically saves his life, pushes him out of the way, that kind of thing. And he feels extremely bad that his sister got eaten by a dragon, as you would. So this whole thing basically, like, they get tossed out of the dungeon, they escape, and Laos is like, well, I can't just not go back in and try and get my sister back. Because, like, you know, resurrection magic exists. We can just resurrect her. And Marcial, the wizard, is like, I don't think we can do it if she's digested.
Yeah. It's that's one of the things very early on. Because this is still chapter 1, I think, all of it.
Yeah, this is still chapter 1.
One of the things that's very interesting about it is it seems like it's a fantasy setting that has taken inspiration from things like Dungeons and Dragons and video games where
it has.
It does just have things like, we just have resurrection magic. So like death's not that big a deal in this world. It's why, you know, adventurers are just willing to go down into dungeons and be like, you know, it sucks. I got an arrow through the head, but I just got brought back to life, and I'm just not going to do that dungeon again in particular.
Yeah. Specifically, the dungeon actually preserves your corpse. So basically, if you are like, if you die and you're then found later on and somebody wants to resurrect you, they could just do that. So, like, thankfully, if you were, you know, lost in there somewhere, you're murdered by, I don't know, a hippogriff or whatever, you can just be like, oh, that guy died. Let's resurrect him. So that there's that kind of convenience in the dungeon. However, it does require a full working corpse. And a lot of the monsters will just, you know, rip you apart. Because, you know, they're monsters.
Rude.
Yeah, rude, right? So this kind of started off when I first started reading this comic, this manga, that I felt as if, like, okay, this is just going to be another, like, fantasy tropey kind of story where, like, you know, it's going to be, the party is about, you know, there's going to be some video gaming shit in this as well, because they're raiding this dungeon, all this stuff, and like, oh, they got to worry about, like, oh, I'm just waiting for stat numbers to show up in this kind of stuff. I will point out, there's not a single stat number in this entire manga. So, instantly...
I mean, look, I'm going to say, that makes this sound like it's a pretty bad isekai, Tristan.
Well, it's not an isekai.
Well, that just makes it sound like it's an even worse manga. I mean, why would anyone ever bother with something that's not an isekai?
If it's not an isekai, I don't want to read it.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Also, I mean, Dungeon Meshi, what even is that? It needs to be 20 words long. Come on.
Oh, yeah.
It needs to be called something like, I fell into another world, and then my sister got consumed by a dragon, and now I have to resurrect her. Like, why would I read this when it doesn't have a cool title like that?
Yeah, true. Also, you missed the point about, like, somehow the hero has to be OP as hell. You know?
Oh, yeah, it's just implied.
Just implied. Okay, cool.
Along with his harm.
Along with his harm. Yeah, so in Dungeon Meshi, we don't get any of that. Fucking thank you. I appreciate that a lot, because as someone who is a sincere reader of fantasy and enjoys fantasy stories, it is difficult to find a manga that is not just an isekai or filled with video game bullshit that is masquerading as a fantasy story.
Yeah, I don't know how the trend hasn't died out yet.
People love it.
Because I've never seen a trend explode and become just so all-consuming in a certain way as the isekai has. It's crazy the number of them that are being made.
It prints money, man. That's the thing. Like, isekai just prints a lot of money. So I can't blame them for keeping on making those things. And some people also do like making them. I just feel as if the majority of isekai... Okay, to be fair, I feel like isekai at this point is kind of doing what, like, shonen manga did back in the 80s, where that exploded. And then, like... Yeah, but I think the problem is, like, isekai just feels such, like, isekai feels like a lot trashier than shonen does, or even did back then.
Yeah, because the difference, I think, is isekai, by and large, is very specifically meant to be fan servicey and meant to be, well, you could see yourself as the main hero, which is why we also have to give them a harem. Whereas, like, you know, you talk about the 80s, it's like Fist of the North Star and Dragon Ball. You were never meant to be like, I could be Goku. Yeah, you're meant to think he's cool and want to be him, but you're not meant to think like, yeah, I could be that person. Whereas isekais are very clearly meant to be, you know, fantasy fulfillment of like, this is what happened if you went into another world.
Yeah, that's typically your isekai thing, right? Like, I get it, but I avoided like the plague.
Yeah, I hate it.
Yeah, there's
Dungeon Meshi.
Yeah, Dungeon Meshi. Basically, what we're talking about is no isekai shit, no video gamey VR bullshit. No, we gotta check our stats at the Adventurers Guild kind of stuff. They are part of an Adventurers Guild, but it's not like that. They don't ever get like a stat card. None of that crap. They are like, yeah, this is more of a D&D thing in a way, where like if there's stats happening, it's way in the background. You'll never see it pop up in a page. I love that. Because I prefer my fantasy to be, you know, to be like it's grounded and real. And that's the thing that Dungeon Meshi actually has, is that it is nicely grounded in the way it's doing things. Because like there's a lot to be said about the way they will take like this, that the Ryukokui will take this story and like think about the ways things are done with monsters and how to defeat them and that kind of stuff, and also like the idea of like being hungry in a dungeon and what that would mean during a fight and that kind of stuff. So yeah,
It means you eat your moccasins.
That's a possibility, yes. Although I don't see anybody wearing moccasins in this.
Well, they're never going to survive then.
Well, a lot of leather boots though, so leather can be eaten. You boil it
you
first.
You can eat those then, yeah.
Yeah. Two getters do wear sandals though, so like that's gonna be a hard time. Anyway, so basically, as they're going back in the dungeon, the big thing on their mind is like, okay, we don't have any food. We don't really have any good gear. We don't really have any real way to map out the dungeon, and like that dragon just basically fucked us up anyway. And now we're down 2 members because Namari and Shuri or Shuro left. So we're down to Laos, Marcial, and Chilchuk. And the question then becomes like, okay, you guys should just leave, sell your gear, leave the guild. I'll take the money and I'll go into the dungeon and get my sister back and this kind of stuff. And they're like, no. We're not going to do that. We have the gear. We have the manpower right now. You also need someone who can cast fucking spells, you fighter-ass fighter. So what we're going to do is band together, and we're going to try and just get food while we're in there. There's got to be a store that sells some stuff. You know, we'll get some supplies that way. And that's when Laos has a brilliant idea. They don't have any money to get food, but what they could do, you know, the dungeon itself is filled to the brim with delicious proteins just running around.
The least realistic part of this is the idea that somebody wouldn't have tried to eat these monsters at some point.
Yeah, well, that is a good point. I mean, well, I guess this is like the first time somebody's going to try this, so. Laos is kind of your Florida man. Anyway. Yeah. He's like, yeah, I catfished. I fucking noodled this catfish out of its hole, and then going to take a bite of it, like, out of its spine. So here we go.
Except in this case, it's literally a mixture of a cat and a fish.
Typically, yes. Yeah. So basically, they talk about the dungeon food chain and that kind of stuff. Like, okay, we also find starches and other things down there. Vegetables will grow in the walls at times. There are also like plant monsters, so we could just kind of harvest them too for their fruits and vegetables. It'll be fine. But the thing is, like, nobody has eaten a monster in this dungeon before, so they're kind of like, no, like, we don't know if it's going to taste good, and we don't know if it's going to poison us, we don't know if it's going to fucking curse us or something. It's a hard time. It's a hard sell, let's say. And while this is all happening, and they're trying to discuss this, they fight some mushrooms, all this kind of stuff, and it's like, hey, we got a mushroom guy, we might as well, like, kill him and cook him, kind of thing. And that's when they finally meet up with their new fourth party member, Senshi, who is a dwarf, who wears kind of like hide robes, like animal hide, and like sandals, and he's got like a big helmet that goes over his face, and he's got this giant beard. I like his look. Senshi's he's got the best look.
It's very like 70s animation dwarf.
Yes, it is.
Or like, oh man, what? Not Baskin Robin. God, what are the puppet films again? Bankin' Rass. Like very Rankin Bass look. Blech.
Bankin' Rass. Anyway, yeah, I agree. He is like that. Like, there's something about him that looks like fucking the elf from that Christmas movie, with the big googly eyes behind like the dark helmet. I think that's kind of it. The googly eyes. Anyway, so it turns out that Senshi is actually the original Florida man in this case, because he has been killing and eating monsters for a long time. He has essentially been living in this dungeon and doing his due diligence and chopping them up and eating them. And he is actually a terrific cook. Turns out. Wonderful chef. So yeah.
I would not. Mm-hmm. If a strange man just like came out of the woods one day as I'm walking along, he's just like, "You can't eat that part of it, Sonny. That'll kill you. Let me teach you the right way." I'm not. Nope. Sorry, man. Sir. Don't want anything you're cooking or offering. I'm good.
Yeah.
Good.
That's fair.
Don't need it.
That's fair. Well, regardless, they take him up on his offer because like they are hungry and they need to figure out how to eat monsters in the dungeon. And this guy knows how to do it, so of course they're going to do that. So yeah, basically he whips out his wok and this kind of stuff, and he cuts up the mushroom guy. They also killed the scorpion thing, so he cuts that up too, which is like
the scorpion thing, but not the mushroom. Mushroom's gross, just weird.
Not a big mushroom fan?
No, hate them.
Oh, okay.
Scorpion, I'd be fine with. I'll eat a scorpion.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, it's a big scorpion, so you have to like kind of like clean it and eat it and like cut it up and that kind of stuff. It's like fugu, where you have to avoid like the poison gland, the neurotoxin. Yeah, true. So but he serves this, and like, so Leos is like, yeah, let's do this, because secretly Leos is a bit of a weird monster pervert. So
aren't we all?
Yeah, Leos is kind of like, he's into eating monsters, and he's been like a big monster fan for a long time. And so his whole shtick later, as it goes, is that he just knows fucking everything about monsters, and he is such a he draws himself as a monster. He has like designed the greatest monster of all time.
I didn't get to that part. That's hilarious. Like, is it? He just does. Is it? Does he have like his, for lack of a better term, but OC of like, no, this is me as a monster,
yeah.
Or is it like, this is what I would be like if I was, a minotaur, but this is what I would be like if I was a dragon.
He's got both happening.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
Great.
But the main thing is that so as they go through the dungeon, he starts designing and redesigning the ultimate monster. This does come up later on. Okay. This is a very important thing. So the whole comic for the most part, at least like the first half of it, is all about like cooking monsters. It's kind of a slice of lifey sort of thing, if slice of life is happening inside this dungeon, where they'll like fight a dumb monster and kill it and go like, well, how do we eat this thing now? And then it's a cooking manga about eating this dumb monster. Like there's one where they turn like a harpy into like a fucking like what is it, a like chicken wings and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, and they'll do like, yeah, here's how we like kill and skin a harpy, or here's how we like eat a mimic, or here's how to the mushroom man, of course, or like a selkie.
A mimic can't taste good. There's no way a mimic tastes good.
Apparently it's slimy.
Yeah, that seems about right.
Yeah. Or like they kill a selkie at one point. They're like, okay, we're gonna eat this selkie. And it's like, oh, it's basically horse meat but fishy. And they're like,
You
know,
know,
like, the flavor's not bad.
Sound good, but I'd still try it.
Yeah, exactly. I would too.
Still eat one.
Yeah, totally.
I also, some of the stuff I appreciate is it's not just food humor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a chapter. I haven't read the chapter, but I've seen picture of it multiple times. But there's like a really good scene where at one point, like they come across this treasure chest, basically like, oh, thief, go try and lockpick it.
Yeah,
and they're like 40 feet behind them.
Yes,
just like you guys think this is trapped or it's a mimic or something. No. But let us know once you have it open. It's like, okay.
Yeah, sacrificial lamb.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah. Chilchuck gets the brunt of all that stuff. He's the party thief, the dungeoneer, if you will. So Chilchuck is also my favorite character because Chilchuck's whole thing is that he's an adventurer and a dungeoneer, and someone like doing these things because he has to, because he has bills to pay. And he has a family back home. He has 2 daughters and a wife he has to support. Chilchuck is like 45 years old, something like that, in human years. But he's like he's a halfling, so he's short, and he looks like a kid. But he's like, no, I've got like I've got a family to feed, so I don't want to die here, obviously. So he's extremely good at going through dungeons and getting people through and all this stuff. And it's because of his skills, like that they rely on him a lot. And because he's got something for him waiting back home as his family, he's so good at like, okay, wait, hold on. This room looks fucking crazy. This room is almost empty. It's clearly trapped. And he'll like strip down to like just his pants and his shirt and like feel it out and like start sleuthing the walls and like all this stuff. And the comedy with Chilchuck is amazing because like he has the best reactions. Maybe besides Marcel. Marcel actually has the best reactions, but that's to the food. But Chilchuck has the best reactions to like when people do stupid shit. He's just had it up to here with literally everything in this dungeon, and he wants to go home. And he's just like, I want to help my friends, but my God, I got stuff to do.
Financially not worth his time,
Technically, yeah. But yeah, so basically, yeah, like all the jokes when it comes to dungeoneering, that's Chilchuck. Like I mentioned, Marcel has like the best reactions to things because like she's the one. In Spy Family, like the infamous like Anya faces that she makes, right? Marcel, I'm once the anime comes out, you're gonna get some of that from Marcel. Like she has like those faces. Like she is essentially like Ryoko Kui, pretty much saw Golden Kamui, and went like, I need a character that can do the faces of the little girl in that manga. And she made Marcel that. So when it comes to like eating gross food, she's like, no. Or like just the side eyes and like the reluctance to eat these things. like Marcille is she is the foil for a lot of this stuff, and she gets the brunt of the brunt of the bad cooking goes on to her kind of thing. Like she gets to be like the guinea pig to try stuff.
Come on, I'm sure cockatrice tastes fine.
Yeah, they do eat cockatrice, and it tastes like chicken, so
Yeah, makes
easy.
sense.
Yeah, easy. Yeah, so eventually they start going to the dungeon. They also meet like more people who are just living in the dungeon, like tribes of orcs and that kind of stuff. Also, people who have like set up like actual encampments inside the dungeon as well, which I feel is a bad idea, but whatever.
Yeah, I don't want to live in a dungeon.
I wouldn't
It's just
either.
weird.
Yeah, it is a weird idea. The orcs are actually like they were birthed in the dungeon, but they actually are like a full like race of people hanging out in this place, living, doing their thing. They
Sure,
occasionally
orcs aren't people.
well, these are. So they occasionally pillage like the settlements in the dungeon, but they are like when Laos's party comes across them, they are like humble and like and just nice people, and they're like they don't totally trust like the smooth skins because like the orcs in this one have like fur, and they're like, well, we'll let you kind of like go through our settlement, and as long as you're not going to like pull some weird shit. And then eventually they all become friends, and like, yeah, I like that take. It kind of smacks of like more modern takes on like D&D and stuff, where like people are like, okay, why are orcs all evil? Goblins shouldn't all be evil; they're mostly sexy. Your
Yeah,
face.
you know what? Keep moving. It's fine.
No, I feel like I have to explain that one.
No. You
No?
know what?
Okay,
No,
okay,
you
well.
really don't have to.
Okay, sure, okay, fine.
It's fine.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, they make food for the orcs, and they're like, "Oh man, that's awesome! Like, we didn't know anybody could like cook in this dungeon." And so they trade recipes and stuff, and it's like, yeah, it's cool. Yeah. So eventually, they start moving down to the lower sections of the dungeon, to get to the Red Dragon. They have fought and killed a bunch of crazy shit by this point. And so, up to now, what they have done is also discussed. How are we going to get Marcille back? Or not Marcille, Phelan back? Because, she's been eaten by the dragon. It's been a few days since we've fought the dragon originally. So she's definitely been digested by now. What are we going to do? And it's like, well, as long as we have the body of the dragon, which has absorbed Phelan into it as nutrition, we can separate essentially like the essence of Phelan from that dragon's essence. But what we gotta do is use forbidden black magic.
I don't see a problem here.
I don't do that.
I mean,
But
what, you're gonna let the government tell you what kind of magic you can have?
so that actually is sort of the thing. So yeah, there is a governing body that's just like, oh, you can do this magic and you can do that
The
magic.
Second
and this magic.
Amendment says that I have the right to use any magic I want.
I guess so. But yeah, so essentially, like, yeah, they discuss what they have to do, and Marcille's like, I've been studying this stuff my entire life. This is actually my bread and butter as a magician, as a wizard. So like, once we get there, once we kill the dragon, let me do my thing, and I can bring Phelan back to life through like a true resurrection kind of spell using necromancy. So yeah, they fight the dragon. It gets they fuck it up. They win. All good. All great. It's a good fight. It's like a few chapters. I think it's like what, 3 or 4.
Great. Phelan resurrected. Manga over. Tristan, well, tell people where to find us.
Nope. So here's the thing that happens. That does happen. They resurrect Phelan. She's back. It's great. They're having a good time. And then this weird little guy shows up and mutates Phelan into this half Phelan, half dragon creature. So think like a centaur, but then you put like a dragon for the horse part.
Checks out.
Yeah.
Why you can't trust little people.
I think he's an elf. But he's like a little, he's like a little elf man.
Him. If folklore's taught us anything, don't trust little people. They're all tricksters.
All of them.
Every last one of them.
Every one of them?
Every one.
Okay. Well, all right, fine. So that happens, and then you realize at this point, like, Phelan tries to eat them because she's now more dragon than person, and it's a whole thing. She's transformed into this creature. And at this point, this is where the story starts going heavily into why this dungeon exists, what makes this whole world tick. This is like we start getting exposition and backstory, and we start to understand what's going on with like very small portions of the world that make more sense in context and like all these things. So it turns out the dungeon itself, it requires a dungeon master. They don't call it that, but that's what I'm referring to it as. They do say master of the dungeon though, so like,
Same diff.
Same diff. But essentially, it requires somebody to take on the role of the dungeon master to make monsters and form the dungeon to what they want it to be, because it requires creativity to exist. So the original dungeon master in this case, in this context, is a guy. He has two names. It's either Sissel or Thistle. I'm going to say Thistle because that's what I have in the translation for the manga. But I've seen him referred to as Sissel as well. I'm not going to go with that one.
Spelling Sissel.
Sissel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Thistle, just like a thistle, like a thorn.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna go with Thistle though. That's what they kind of translates into. So yeah. Yeah. So this guy, they end up meeting him a couple times, and he is totally off his rocker. And they end up kind of like inside the dungeon, getting into the walls, like into like the structure and the foundation of it, and they find this room that he's hidden away. And it is through a painting. They have to like get into this painting, and from there go into this like hidden, like he has a whole valley, a whole like mountain range inside the dungeon they can visit, and the people there are kind of like catatonic. And they think that the visitors, which would be Leos's party, are Thistle, and they kind of like miss him. But like he was originally like a servant of theirs, but like a servant who was like well loved and kept after, and like they were family in that sense. And a curse happened to that family, and essentially like they all went catatonic, and he went crazy, and essentially like the dungeon spawned on top of their home, their little manor estate. And that's kind of why you see all these little references to like small castles and like mansions and stuff like that throughout the dungeon, because that's the stuff that Thistle remembers.
Yeah, it's like the cubes that come down in Reboot. We all understand this.
Kind of, actually, yeah. It's similar in a sense.
Half joking, it is actually very similar.
It is kind of a game in Reboot. The other thing is that like, so there's also these other motifs throughout the dungeon, which is like these like lion heads with wings spouting out of them. And at one point, when they're fighting mimics, Leos actually picks up a sword, but it has like the same motif to it, and this sword can actually cut through the monsters better. And like his original sword got fucked up anyway, so he's like, well, good sword. But it turns out that sword is like, it's also a mimic, sort of, but like, it just kind of like latches onto Leos. So
it turns into a sexy anime woman. This is where his harem starts.
No, unfortunately. Yeah. No, at no point does Leos have a harem.
All right. Well, so Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
That's really? Does that game have a harem in it?
Well, it has a sword that's two separate ladies who
Ooh.
both love the main character.
Oh, it does. Yeah, I remember hearing this shit. Okay, yeah.
Uh-huh.
What a weird thing. Why would you write this? Anyway.
Well,
Yeah, whatever. Anyway. We get backstory, we get understanding, we get like a lot of extra stuff that whatever. At one point Leos loses his leg, but they actually regrow it. So that's fun.
I mean, yeah, you got magic, you know.
Yeah.
Of course you can regrow a leg.
Yeah, basically his leg gets eaten by the dragon. And so yeah. They find his leg in the dragon's mouth. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, cool, and then stick it back on and just magic it back together. It's wonderful. The magic in this manga is great. Also, this manga is not afraid to be a little messy, a little gross. So there's that. Just an FYI. So as they're going through, though, they get a lot more like I said, familiar with the world. And they're now trying to re-get Phelan back. So now they have to defeat her as a dragon again, separate her body from the dragon again, and then also resurrect her again. But there's an added complication because they now realize that because now she's morphed into the dragon, they need to remove as much dragon as possible. So this manga, like I said, originally hinged on the fact that they kill and eat monsters in a dungeon. And eventually, they realize the best way for them to deal with their dragon problem with Phelan is to separate Phelan's human half from the dragon via butchering, and then eat the dragon part.
I mean, look, I don't know if you've ever seen how they will say, cure people in a hospital, but it's very similar.
Yes, extremely. So while this is all happening, once they've come to this conclusion, before they come to this conclusion, they have also picked up a new party member, Izutsumi, who used to be a member of the Shuro's party, who came back to the dungeon after leaving Leos's group, because he was just so upset with himself that he just let his friends go back in there, and he just could not deal. So it was Shuro, who is essentially a Japanese guy in this world. He's a samurai. He brings in Maizuru, Hayan, Benejidori, and Inutade. And I believe it's Inutade. Yeah, Inutade is the best. She's this, an Oni, half troll kind of person. She's 7 feet tall and has giant legs. And just kicks things. It's great.
Oh, okay. That's pretty good.
Hell yeah.
So, Oni is typically fights with club, but I like the idea of Oni who fights with legs.
Yeah, she has a club as well, but she does more kicks than anything. Big, drop kicks, too. Flying drop kicks from the side.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, she's good. Benchidori's ninja, blah, 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 blah. Hyan's also ninja, etc., etc. Shuro is the one that has the harem, I should point out. When Shuro arrives, the rest of his party is all women.
Typical Shuro.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway. Izutsumi is also part of that, and she splits off from Shuro because, he's heading back out of the dungeon, and Izutsumi she's sort of a slave. She's a retainer to Shuro.
Oh, okay.
And she doesn't want to be that anymore, so she takes off and joins up with Leos's group, and just helps them get to the dungeon. Izutsumi is essentially, she's a fist fighter. She's more like a kung fu monk kind of character, but she's also half cat. She has also been she's basically been cursed to be half cat. This is not her normal form. She was supposed to be a full human, But at some point, she got melded into this like cat creature. So yeah, but like this happened like when she was young, so she doesn't remember ever being like full human or anything. So whatever. So while Shuro shows up, there's also another party, Kabru and his party. They are running around doing stuff as well, and they encounter the Canaries. The Canaries are essentially the government's hit squad, who has had enough of this dungeon and are going to shut this shit down. Because the Canaries know what the dungeons actually are, and they need to take control of it ASAP. And they're all elves with all varying degrees of magic. Mizran's whole thing is that he can basically teleport, and he's like the best teleporter. Like, teleport himself, you, pieces of you if he wants to. Teleport things inside of you. Yeah, he's nasty.
Jerk.
He's a nasty guy. But eventually, like, because Cabron and Leos are friends, Cabron starts kind of like talking to Mizran and kind of like swaying him to the side of like, hey, let's talk this out and let's help Leos do his thing first, and then maybe we'll talk about destroying the dungeon, that kind of stuff. So all this boils down to some really complex, like, political drama happening within this manga, as well as them like going through and trying to survive this horrible situation, and eventually Leos kills his own sister to, you know, turn her back from a dragon into a person and all this stuff. Now, like I mentioned, the dungeon requires a dungeon master. They do eventually kill Thistle, or more so separate him from the book that he uses to make the dungeon work. Yeah.
Okay.
Which essentially kills him because like he was immortal and now he's not.
Now we're back to being mean.
Yeah. Either way, what ends up happening is that the dungeon still requires somebody to take on the power of it, or else it just collapses entirely. And they need the dungeon still alive so they can, you know, kill and eat Phelan.
Makes sense.
So in order to do that, Leos was going to do it, and the whole story is kind of coming up to Leos is going to be the dungeon master. Here we go. And we get backstory as well as to like what this means, and essentially the dungeon is a demon. The whole thing is one big demon, because the winged lion is a real creature, not just a motif, and it offers you your greatest desire, but it loves eating and it loves food, and it likes to eat your desires as well, leaving you with only one desire, your greatest one. So, which means like you become obsessed, and then he gives you like the power to do whatever you want. And sometimes that's make a dungeon. Sometimes that's, you know, heal people. Sometimes it's whatever. Whatever you want, he gives it to you in exchange for all your desires but the one. So, what this means is the dungeon was the desire of Thistle, but the dungeon is going to collapse without Thistle there to essentially keep making it. So somebody needs to be the new Thistle. And like I said, it was going to be Leos, but then Marcial is the one that actually gets left with the book. And so she becomes the new dungeon master. And she wears a terrible dress that the winged lion prepares for her. It's essentially made of like beast hide. It has like a little hat that has like beast ears. And like it's like a low cut dress, and she's a pretty conservative person. And it's like, what the fuck is this dress?
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
It's pretty funny. It's a terrible look. It's wonderful. A lot of great visual gags in this manga still. I should point out, Izutsumi has some of the best lines. Izutsumi basically has some of the best reactions and lines in this manga. There's a great moment where like there are different kinds of mimics that show up that are essentially like giant mosquitoes that are changelings that will like they suck your blood, knock you out, and become you.
I don't like that at all.
Yeah, it sucks. But the first thing they do though, because they're based off that desire thing, is when they show up, they show you they mimic themselves into your greatest desire, and it could be anything like food, power, money, like sex, anything. And there's a great one where like to get the Marseille, what the mimics do is they show up as like this like regal looking elven man on a horse with like beautiful long hair and like a death eye patch, and he's got full lips and he's sparkling. And like, oh my god! And Marcial's just beat red, and they're like, "Really? That's what you're into? Really? That?" And she's like, "Look, no." So it takes them all out, but it turns out like that Izasumi, because she has two like kind of souls inside of herself, the cat's soul and her own soul, she is actually immune to their whole thing. And because at one point, she fights a panther while this whole thing is happening, and she kind of discards, like, just doesn't regard that as anything, but then eventually, like, defeats the mimics, and is looking over the panther, it's like, so that's what the cat inside me likes? Nice, I guess. Kind of handsome.
No. Don't, no.
It's
like
dead.
that.
Is that? She's like, good choice. and then, like, kills them all and eats them. Yeah. And then breaks the rest of the party out of the curse. It's yeah, it's wonderful. Anyway, so all this basically happens, leads into like the final like confrontation, because Marcial eventually like loses control of the book, and Leos and the rest of the crew wrestle from her, and now the whole thing is going to collapse again. And Leos goes, "Okay, I will be the one that takes the book this time," and he does. And the demon's like, "Well, what do you desire? Like, what do you want?" And Leo's like, "There's only one thing in this world I desire more than anything." And that's when the dungeon rips apart, and out comes Leos's ultimate monster. With like, it's got 3 heads, multiple eyes, the power to do magic, all this shit. It's giant.
His fanfic. I've got
His
it.
fanfic happens, yes. So, and the thing is, he becomes his fanfic, so he is now his own OC.
Right.
It's wonderful. And then he starts just trying, because he has full control over himself, so he starts trying to fuck up the winged lion and just eat him, essentially. The battle ensues. He wins, because, that's how the story's going to go. He beats the winged lion, and like there's a moment where it looks like that Leos is not going to come back, because like he still has to kind of like reform himself and all these things from like the dungeon particles. So he does though, and then and then basically he basically comes back and he's like, okay, we have to do what we've come here to do. Finally, we have Phelan's body. We defeated her. The demon's defeated. Let's eat my sister. So they do. So the rest of the remainder of the manga. So basically, because Leos killed and ate, like the dungeon essentially. Now all that extra weight has nowhere to go, and the island starts rising. Turns out there's like a whole lost kingdom beneath everything.
A very rich kingdom.
Extremely, yes. And as it turns out, anybody who could actually defeat that dungeon would become the ruler of that land. So now Leos is a king, and he's like, I don't wanna be a king. I want to just.
Too bad. No, you're king.
I want to be this monster.
No, too bad. You're king.
I want to be this monster, though.
Too bad. Should have thought that through. You should have asked the lion to be a monster.
It's got 3 heads. One's a bicorn, one's a wolf, and one's a griffin. I want the 3 head.
Well, you screwed up.
It's got a snake on the tail.
Now you're a king.
Okay.
You got greedy.
Fine. Well, I should point out the fight between the demon in like the final chapters, creepy as shit. That Ryoko Kui. If you listen to this, I hope you do, but if you do, keep drawing monsters like you do, because the final fight, like, yeah, they fight the winged dragon, the winged lion, whatever. But the final fight with like all the arms coming out from the dungeon, like the giant arms scooping people up and like taking them away and like ripping apart like the monster. Oh, what the hell? What a ooh ooh. The imagery in this manga starts to rival Berserk in a way, and with how dark it gets. It starts getting weird, man. And I gotta, like, it's just, it's so good. It's chef's kiss good. Yeah. So, like I said, everything's defeated. Bad guys defeated. Now it's just all about, like, the last few chapters are all about eating Felin.
And there's a lot of Phelan to eat.
Yeah, she's big. She's real big. Because there's a lot of her. But everybody they've saved in the dungeon is like, okay, look. Leos, we owe you our lives. What can we do to help? He's like, great. I need you all to hang tight and eat my sister. As we cook and prepare her.
So they're like, we're vegetarians. So...
I don't care.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Yeah. Literally, it's like everybody shows up. It's like hundreds of people. And they're like, what do we do? You're now the king, and we're looking for you for guidance. He's like, I want everyone to help us eat my sister. He's just like pointing at like her giant corpse on ice. And everybody else is so embarrassed at the party. And like, yeah, that's what we want you to do. Oh, God. He just said it.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So yeah, eventually they do. And like they eat the right parts and this kind of stuff. And the last few chapters are just kind of like, it's there's no action. It's just kind of getting down to brass tacks of like, how are we going to continue on this strange world that we live in? And, like, Leos are going to become the king, all this kind of stuff. Like, what's going to happen to Marcille because she's done black magic, and the Canaries know, and they're the government that enforces anti-black magic laws. All this stuff.
It very much reminds me of the Mass Effect 3 Citadel DLC, the end part of it, where it's just like, it's just the group of companions you've been with through these hours and hours across these 3 games, as they're just having a party and you're just checking in.
Yeah.
And some of them it's going well, like Grunt, who's just fighting people, or he's just at the door going, denied, denied. Or it's people like Tally who are going like, wait, did I put cheese into the wrong slot? Oh, no.
Exactly.
Like, that's all this is. You're like, this is great.
Yeah, that's what the last few chapters are. And it just ends up like exactly like Mass Effect 3's like final DLC. It was just like, you just have this party and just checking in with everybody. It's an epilogue. And it's just all about like where everybody is at the end of this whole crazy journey and what everybody's going to do. And literally there's a chapter where Izetsumi goes around because she's now free. Like, she's done her part. She's been freed from like Shuro's like from his hair. Yeah, exactly. From being a concubine or a servant. And now she's just kind of like in on her own, and she's going around to people, going like, "What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do after this whole thing?" And like goes to the like chill shack, and he's like, "Oh, I'm making sausage." She's like, "No, after this." And he's like, "Oh, I got a family to go back to, so after this, I'm going to go back and see them and live a little bit with them and this kind of stuff." Like, "Oh, what are you doing, Marcel?" She's like, "Well, I'm making blood soup." And, well, but after this, I have to go with the Canaries because, like, I'm being arrested for all the horrible things I've done against magic kind. So, yeah. And all these things, like checking with Senshi and, with all the people there. And checks in with, like, Leos and is like, "Well, what are you doing after this?" He's like, "Well, now I've kind of, like, lost my own sort of, like, sense of freedom just because... now I am beholden to this land. I don't know what I'm going to do now. So I guess live it up as much as I can until then." And the conclusion with her, she's kind of like, yeah, I guess, well, I'll just do whatever I want. Huh. And it's just like, it's so simple. But she just doesn't get it until then. Yeah, so eventually, like I said, everything gets cooked, everything gets eaten. There's a main epilogue chapter describing like what happens after the whole thing works. Phelan does come back. She's alive again. She's got like, because she's centaured off with dragon parts, you know, there was a chance she doesn't come back because reasons. But yeah, she's got her legs back and everything, and it just works out great. And then the whole thing is just Leos and Phelan and trying to live their lives, and like he makes Marcille his like court wizard so she doesn't get tossed into prison. All this stuff, and yeah, it wraps up just so nicely. And like there's this kind of wonderful part where like Phelan isn't quite sure if she wants to come back, and she has one last discussion with the winged lion, and he kind of like talks about desires, and yeah, it just wraps up in this wonderful little bow. And I haven't seen a story like this end like this in a long time, because I mean, it happens where a lot of the time with like manga especially, the endings are either kind of bittersweet, or like the mangaka just like gets tired of the story and just kind of like just closes it as fast as possible. All these things, and you don't really get much of closure. But Dungeon Meshi wants to Ryoko Kui is a fan of her own story, and she wants to tell the best one she possibly can. And at the end of it, she knows, like, she's saying goodbye to these characters for the time being, and so are we. And it's this wonderful moment of like, you know, everything's gonna be fine. It's all gonna work out. And here's how it's going to go down. And we're gonna say goodbye, but like, you know, they're good, they're happy. Let's read something else.
I'll say it ends in a way where you don't have to worry about them Borutoing this.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
Doesn't feel like, if they ever do more Dungeon Meshi, it has to be different characters. It just does not feel like there is any way you could do Dungeon Meshi 2, and it's like, Laos is back, baby. It'd be like, no, what?
Like I feel if you could, like, you know, Laos is possibly a character in the background, or sort of maybe Marcille or Phelan, who knows? Sure. But like, no, it straight up says like the epilogue is like, yeah, like, this is it. And then they also talk about like how Laos goes on, and like how he will eventually die and all this shit because he's a human, and blah 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 blah. Yeah. But yeah, it's this wonderful comic, this wonderful manga that uses the power of food and cooking and all these things, and the message eventually does boil down to food and cooking and all this stuff brings us together, because essentially meals are a form of love. And that is what this manga is about how we can share the love and the load and that kind of stuff, and make a community that is together with itself. And I think that's a beautiful little story that she has. So yeah, I think if anybody hasn't checked it out, I say go read it. It's also, I didn't point this out yet, it is also a gorgeous manga.
Yes, fantastic animation.
Yeah,
art style. Especially
like the final few like chapters. Like starting off, it's like a little rough here or there, but like the final few chapters, oh my fucking god, she draws the hell out of this manga. Like, nobody's talking about this manga as like, oh, this is one of the most beautiful things. No, this is like straight up one of the most beautiful manga I've ever read in my life. And again, I'm a Berserk and Vagabond guy. And so, like, when I say this is like the most gorgeous thing that I've ever read, that's in comparison to all the other gorgeous stuff I've read. So, like, yeah, like this one is just, it's killer. Yeah, but yeah, that's the Meshi.
All right. Well, it sounds like that's everything you have to say. So why don't you actually tell people where to find us for real?
For real this time. Not like last time, which was fake. You should go to our Twitter page, which is at EIFNIR. Go there and tell us how much you love Dungeon Meshi, because, yeah, you should read it. Hassan, you should read the whole thing.
Yeah, I really should.
I think you would like it.
It just literally only came on my radar relatively recently.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, like the doing this topic, of course, we usually find like other people, like each other's each other's things that they're into through doing these topics. And I'm just like, yeah, just saying this. I think this wouldn't be up your alley for sure. You should also go to our Twitter, iTunes, Spotify pages. Go to our YouTube if you're not watching this right now, and share the video with your friends. Yeah, like and subscribe and all that stuff. Like and subscribe,
or we'll eat you,
or we'll fucking eat you. I'm gonna just chow down, baby. Yeah. Anyway, you should go to friends.djdane.com. That's the guy that does our music. djdane.com. Go there. Listen to his great tunes. Maybe turn him into the next Dungeon Master.
I love that.
Yeah. Drop a reboot game on him. And now he's the Dungeon Master of that one. Yes.
He gets a sick eye.
Hell yeah. That sounds good to me. Hell yeah. Or like a surf boy, like the net surfer.
Yeah, that kind of sucks.
Yeah, it kind of sucks. It's true. Great pun. Kind of sucks, though. Anyway, that's it for our show. Tune in next time for another eddied episode of Everything is Fine That's Ruined. See ya.
See ya.